I posted this video showing my journey from aerospace engineering to medicine, and I have gotten so many questions, not just about how I did it, but also why I did it. What motivated me? Was I not scared? How did I know medicine was for me? How did I tell my family? And so in this video, I'm going to talk all about that. Hello, my name is Wanu, and by the time I post this video, I will be a doctor. And that is crazy to say because this time in 2017, I was a third year engineering student and I felt like my life was in shambles. I knew I wanted to become a doctor, but I had no idea how I was going to achieve that. So to be sitting here at the end of medical school, God is good. God is so good, and I'm so grateful. So, to my story. Back in high school, I loved biology and I thought the human body was interesting, so medicine was definitely an option. But I loved planes a lot more. I think that flight is one of the most beautiful things that humans have achieved, and I wanted to be a part of that, so I decided I was going to be a pilot. In fact, 16-year-old me had a grand idea. You don't need a degree to be a pilot, so left to me, why even go? I was just going to go to flight school, get my licenses, build my hours, and eventually become an airline pilot. My mother, my mother was not having that. From what I remember, this was a very short conversation. She sat me down, told me it was important for me to go to university, and said, pick a degree. I said, yes, ma'am. And because I wanted to fly planes, it only made sense that I choose something related to planes still. So why not build them too? And that is how I chose aerospace engineering. That worked well for me. By my second semester, I'd landed a great opportunity with GE Aviation, and as an intern with them, I would have gone to school for one semester, worked for the next semester, gone back to school for the next semester, worked for the next semester, and just continue that cycle until graduation, after which I would have joined them full time. Engineering was great. My career opportunities opened up. I started considering flight test engineering, and in a position like that, I could build planes and also fly them, and that appealed to me because I was still interested in becoming a pilot. After my second semester, before I left to start my internship with GE, I took the summer off to attend ground school for my first pilot's license. At that point, it seemed like regardless of what I chose in aviation, I was still going to have a great career. Everything seemed to be falling in place. But wait. In the midst of all this perfection, there was one problem. I started thinking about medicine, and it made no sense to me. I was doing what I wanted. I was at one of the best schools for aerospace engineering. I had a great internship. I was working on my pilot's licenses. So why was I thinking about medicine? I also wasn't the only one that felt this way because a friend asked me a few years ago, it's not like you were struggling in engineering. You were doing really well, so why did you leave? And that is exactly how I felt when I first started thinking about medicine. I'm happy. I'm doing what I want. So why would I be thinking about a completely different field? The feeling was so strong that I pulled up a pre-med catalog and I started counting. If I switch now, this credit will transfer, this credit will transfer, this class will apply, so maybe I wouldn't have to retake my first, 2 or 3 semesters. Okay? So you know what I did next? I ignored it. I ignored the feeling. I didn't want to be a doctor. Tons of Nigerians are already going to medicine. The field is not lacking by not having me. Also, I'm doing what I want. Something cool, something different. I'm happy. So yeah, I ignored the feeling. The feeling didn't go away though, and so to satisfy this urge, I started doing other things. I started volunteering at the hospital close by. I started a drive supplying mothers back home with hospital items. I was doing anything I could to contribute to the medical field. I even started praying about this feeling, more like praying for it to go away.
Dominus vobiscum. Semper.
You're watching this video, so obviously that didn't work. I ignored the feeling for a very long time though. I mean, for years. And that was relatively easy to do because the thought of leaving engineering, leaving aviation, leaving everything I was building, and exploring medicine, a field that I knew nothing about, that thought was terrifying. And just to put into perspective how far removed I was from every other field, I went to a small aviation-focused school in a small town. Everybody was there for planes. The engineers, the pilots, aviation maintenance, air traffic control. Even the business students were there to study aviation business. That's all we did. It wasn't like my current school that has over 50,000 students and probably every major you can think about. I couldn't just walk across the street to be like, "Hi, I want to be a doctor. Can you help me?" We had nothing even remotely related to pre-med. Even if I wanted to explore medicine, I had no idea how I was going to do it. Regardless of my fear and honestly how directionless I felt, I knew that I had to switch. Every time I prayed about it, it became clearer that God wanted me to do medicine. I can't say I've had many experiences of hearing his voice, like hearing him say words, but one thing I'm sure about is that when I'm trying to make a decision and I pray about it, if I'm on the right path, then I have peace. And in this situation, when I prayed about medicine, even though there was the outside chaos of not knowing how I was going to do it, having to tell my family, having to pack up and move somewhere else and completely change my life, I had peace. And so I knew I had to do it. Let's take a break from me for 1 second though. If you're watching this and you're currently struggling with a difficult decision, I want to challenge you with a question. If you knew a plane would crash, would you still board that plane just because you spent a lot of money on the ticket? I think every reasonable person that values self-preservation would answer no to the question. It's rather dramatic, but I think you get the point. When it comes to business, career, relationships even, the fact that you've invested a lot should not stop you from pivoting if you feel as though you need to. It might be a difficult decision, yes, but I truly believe that if you go into it with the right intentions and you're willing to put in the work, things will work out. I knew I had to switch, so I started doing as much research as I could. I started watching videos, I looked up other career changers, I started reaching out to doctors. My first mentors were actually doctors that I found on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and doctors that I would email who were gracious enough to respond to me. I was just doing everything and looking for any information that could help me. I also went ahead and told my family, and yes, I sounded completely crazy because my only solid reason at the time was God told me to do it. My parents were completely shocked because I had given them no indication whatsoever that I was even thinking about changing careers. So to approach them not with the thought, but with the decision to study medicine was ludicrous. My uncles and my aunts, funny enough, were very happy. And I think that because they were happy, my parents started eventually, like a year later, to warm up to the idea. I also started telling my closest friends, and surprisingly, none of them were shocked. When I told my oldest friend, Amina, she actually said, "Finally." So I guess maybe I'd been giving my friends little inklings here and there. I don't know. They were not surprised. Anyway, it's been 7 years since I made that decision, and I am so glad that I did. If you're grappling with something similar, then I'm proof that what you want is possible. I won't lie to you though. It was hard. Be ready for some very, very lonely days. You may not have them, and if you don't, great. But I sure did. Be ready for sideways comments. You don't know what you're doing. You haven't thought this through. You're indecisive. Be ready for people to say sometimes very rude things. Be ready for that. Be ready to question yourself. I definitely questioned myself. I questioned God on many occasions because life would have been easier if I just continued in engineering. Everything seemed like it was going to work out. But at the end of the day, like I said, if you have the right intentions and you're willing to put in the work, I truly believe that anything is possible. This brings me to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to help everyone that I can. So if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for other videos that you'd like me to make, please leave that in the comment section. if you enjoy this video about why I switched to medicine, then you might also like this video in which I talk about exactly how I did it, my timeline, the exams that I took, and my whole application. See you there.